Alright, welcome back to the support guide, YouTube. We are halfway there. So now we are going over, okay, that's not really troll. Now we're going over relics and core items will be this part of the video. So we'll go over relics pretty in depth, what you want to get at level 1, what I think is the strongest, and what you want to get at level 2, so on and so forth, the situational one. So first off, again, we're considering this on patch 5.4. So, Blink was nerfed for patch 5.4. It is the only relic, I think it's the only relic that's been adjusted since the start of Season 5. There was a couple changes with, like, Cursed Ankh, for example. But for the most part, Blink is the only one to really get a buff or a nerf, other than just reworking a relic. So, 120-second cooldown, I guess we'll talk about that first. So, I think that actually hurts Blink a lot for support. Blink was basically nerfed because assassins were abusing it super hard, which is literally how Blink has always gone in the history of Smite, which is if assassins abuse it, it gets nerfed. So, the part where you're really going to see this make a huge impact is stuff like Geb or Sylvanas, where you want to have a Blink alt initiation. You now can no longer blink off cooldown, basically. There used to be a 10-second window where Blink would be on cooldown, but your alt wouldn't be on a 90-second base alt, which is the standard. And then your blink at 100 seconds wouldn't be up yet. 10 seconds, no big deal, it'll pretty much always be up. Now 30 seconds, that window obviously gets a lot bigger. You can't really go in off cooldown. It's a lot easier for people to kind of say, oh, we alted at the same time in that fight. Mine is still on, mine just came off cooldown. We have 30 seconds to go. They can't engage on us, play up, whatever. You might not have that be that big of a factor in a rank game, or in like, a casual or a low-level rank game, but I think in higher level ranked and then certainly competitive, that window is very impactful. I think especially for gods like Ares or Ymir, where you want to be blinking in for pressure, especially Ymir, I think is the god where he doesn't really have a blink alt engage. I think this hurts him a lot because he's not able to put out as much pressure as he'd like, and you're probably better off going other stuff. And then for the sake of going level 1, I just think Blink is a lot weaker than it used to be because it doesn't really impact your level 1 that much. Outside of blinking on them before the wave spawn to try to get a little bit more pressure in the lane, it doesn't really do that much. I think that pretty much, I say Shell, Horrific, Heavenly, Meditation, Sunder, Bracer, Thorns, they are all better at level 1 than Blink, in my opinion. So Blink actually took a big hit in this patch. I think it's still good on the gods that I mentioned. Especially if you're the main engage for the team. If you're something like, I guess let's say you're something like a Geb, and you're kind of playing for the mid-game, and you're only a mid-game initiation, you do want Blink to be able to make plays, but maybe it's something where instead of buying it at level 1, you buy it at level 12, and you go for a relic that'll help you more in the early game. So, going on to that kind of line of thought, Heavenly is fucking broken. The reason Heavenly is broken is it gives you, one, it's a short cooldown. It's a 140-second cooldown. It is only 20 seconds more than Blink. It is 10 seconds less than Shell. As far as relics, I guess, comparatively, it's a pretty long cooldown, but it's less than Beads, it's less than Aegis, so you'll be able to have it up more than the carries will. It's less than Shell. In my opinion, this is the best relic for supports overall, just straight up. It does everything you want a support relic to do. It can peel by getting them out with movement speed, it can help you engage, it can help you save your own life by giving you the slow immunity. Late game, you can upgrade it. It'll make your hunters super insane, or if you have an auto attack assassin or a mid laner, maybe you have like a soul mid lane or something, it can, give them the haste and it'll be really good. This relic just works in pretty much every situation except for the one where someone on your team is getting chain CC'd and beat down on, or yourself, you're getting chain CC'd and killed, or you're Circuit alted or something, and you you need damage mitigation or something. Pretty much for every situation, Heavenly is good. I think it's the best support relic. Pretty much straight up, there are situations where you don't want to get it, but most of the time you can never go wrong with getting Heavenly at level 1. Other relics that I think are really good, Horrific. It can kind of get you big pressure in a laning phase. It can bait out enemy carry relics. The upgrade on this relic, so something I really want to talk about in general are the upgrades on the relics. Because games are going to go later, you really, really, really need to be valuing the relic upgrade more than you would have in Season 4, and I think upgrading relics earlier in the game might be something that you see come back. That was something in like Season 2 when you used to have to buy the full relic. You would buy a full like 900 gold relic before you even got like Sovereignty online just for the fight. I don't know if it's quite to that point, but you saw at Worlds, for example, I went upgraded Horrific instead, or I went upgrade Horrific level 1, just because throughout the game it'll just mitigate so much damage. 20% damage deal is reduced is such an insane passive. It is actually crazy. Like, if you can engage on the enemy mage and bait their beads, even if you don't get the slow off, if they try to turn on you and kill you, and you just horrific them, it can save your life, it can save your carry's life, it can set up kills. I would say this is the most flexible relic after Heavenly in terms of being able to do stuff. Same thing, it can peel, it can make them do less damage, the attack speed reduction, huge deal, and the damage decrease, a huge deal. The one weakness of this relic that I think doesn't get talked about enough is the range of it and how small the radius is. It is 35 units compared to 55 units, and that is a big deal, which means you have to be almost in melee range to kind of apply. That's not almost in melee range, but like a hunter can auto attack you and you won't be in range to apply horrific to him, and that's something to note. It is pretty important. Having the radius to affect multiple people is a big deal, especially in team fights, so just something to keep in mind. Moving on, Shell, it's just Shell. Like, it's just a good item. It's just the classic support relic. I think, in my opinion, the upgrade, I would say the upgrade on Horrific will actually mitigate more damage late game than Shell will in general, if you time the Horrific upgrade correctly, but I mean, you have to time Shell correctly as well. I think Shell, it's still a super strong relic. Level 1, it can help you trade poke, it can help you save your carry, it can, get people out of ganks, it can save yourself. If you're against something like a Circuit or a Nemesis and they shred all of your carry's HP or something, you need to help them live with one hit. Something like a Horrific won't really save them, a Heavenly won't save them. In the case of Circuit, Meditation can't save them, but Shell might, right? So, I mean, it's Shell. Like, it can turn kills, it can, help bait. It's just a good relic. I think all 4 of these relics on the top row are placed here because I think they are... Most games, I think if you buy 2 of these 4 relics, you're going to be feeling good. I would actually say Horrific is maybe the weakest of the 4, just because of the range and because I really don't think it's that great until you upgrade it, whereas the non-upgraded versions of Blink Rune, Magic Shell, and Heavenly are really good. But when you get to late game, I think Horrific is super good, so just value that as you will. But yeah, I think, all 4 of these relics are super consistent, they're reliable, they're really good, and that's just kind of where you're at with that. Moving on, Meditation Cloak, don't buy it. I think it is definitively bad this season. I don't think you need help with mana at all. You have 2 boots options that give you a lot of mana. You have Guardian's and Mage's Blessing and Hunter's Blessing and Assassin's Blessing, where if you start any of those 4, you'll have plenty of mana. The health that you get is not as good as Shell, even though it's on a shorter cooldown. I don't think it really matters. And again, the upgrade is just not nearly as good as other relics. You'd rather have haste, you'd rather have damage mitigation, block auto attacks, damage mitigation again, damage increase, whatever. I don't think meditation's that good. I'd recommend staying away from it. Some situations, yeah, it could be good. A god like Fafnir, I thought was always good with this because for some reason your alt costs 100 mana at level 5, and having meditation to make sure you can get all of your abilities off is a big deal. Maybe in some cases you could buy it, but for the most part, I'd try to learn to play without it. Moving on, Cursed Ankh. This relic is super good. Something to note here is that, 1, it's a shorter passive than it used to be. 120 seconds is a big deal. It's a shorter cooldown than Horrific and Heavenly and Shell, and now on an even cooldown as Blink Rune and Meditation. So, short cooldown relic. On top of that, it reduces healing, which I don't think healers are really that great in the current meta, but, some are still alright. It's just healing and smite. It's just a good thing. And then the upgrade, I think Cursed Ankh kind of is underlooked in cases where there aren't healers, so something like a Soul 1 or a Sobek 3 or a Chalk 3, any self-healing, self-sustain abilities, if they're about to be used in a team fight, or they are being used if they're like a dot sustain thing, so like a Soul 1, you're able to activate this when you see that, and then they take 20% more damage. It's kind of like a cheesy way to get kills. I don't think it's as good as these other relics, but it is a viable option, and I think that's one that you definitely want to keep in mind. I think mainly you only really want to buy it when the enemy team has a healer, and even then, when they do have a healer, you might be better off going Blink or Heavenly just to kind of engage on them and force them out of fights, or kill them early, obviously, ideally. So I think it's a viable option. I don't know if it's that great, but I think you can do a lot of stuff with it, and I would just be aware that's a short cooldown and has a strong passive when you upgrade it. Moving on, Belt of Frenzy. I think this is the most underrated relic in all of Smite right now. I see people complaining about sieging literally nonstop, and it drives me crazy. This is the relic where you don't buy this until level 12. I would say that about Cursed Ankh as well. The other ones I went over, level 1, they're all fine. These two, I would say, really need their upgrades to kind of shine. I'd say especially Belt of Frenzy. Having this early will pretty much do nothing because you're looking for the 10% increased damage. You don't do much damage early. Like, that 10% increase isn't going to be as much as, you know, maybe a Shell would help you out trade, or Horrific, or, you know, whatever. We've been over that. But if you're in a scenario where you hit level 12 and you're ahead and you need to close out a game, and you think the enemy team has a better late game, you grab Belt of Frenzy, you can burn Fire Giant with it, or you can win a fight, get Fire Giant Siege, and it'll be very hard for them, if your ADC actually hits the Phoenix, to have 10 penetration and 10% increased damage, and have 15% attack speed, and having the duration increase to 8 seconds. It is very, very hard to fight into a Belt of Frenzy upgrade. I think it is super underrated. I think that it is a very good option. I think it's basically criminally underbought, and I would look to mess around with it a lot at level 12. I think it's a really good relic. Thorne's kind of just like the pub stomp relic whenever you get ahead. I'd say in a ranked game, if you want to learn how to play traditional support, the only time I'd really advise going Thorns is if they have like a 2 auto attack kind of setup. So if they have like Hunter mid, Hunter ADC, or if they have like a Soul plus a Hunter, or if they have like a Kali or a Mercury plus a Hunter and you're going to die to auto attacks, this can save your life. It can kill them. You know, it's just Thorns, right? It's pretty good. I still think it doesn't really fit the support role as well as the other relics, but, you know, it's fine. It's just Thorns, right? If you get ahead, you can push your lead. It can help you dive people and kill gods like Bacchus, right? I mentioned earlier in another part of the video, if you're a god like Bacchus, you really just want to commit and get in there and then kill them. This helps you hard commit, and it punishes them for going on you, so it can fit someone like him very well. Moving on, Phantom Veil. This is the most overrated relic, because it is complete garbage, and I mean that. It is complete garbage if you do not have to use this passive to get through a wall. So unless you're against an Odin or a Ymir, do not pick this up. For some reason, people think the 15% damage mitigation buff is a huge deal. It's just 5 seconds. It doesn't last for the entire 10. It's a 150-second cooldown. I mean, just compare this to Horrific. Right? It's the exact same radius, except it has to be applied on your own teammates instead of the enemy. So you can either reduce the damage your teammates take by 15 for 5%, or you could reduce the damage the enemy team deals by 20%, so 5% more damage mitigation, for the same time, and slow them, and reduce their attack speed, and have a 20-second shorter cooldown. There is literally no scenario where having an upgraded Phantom is ever better than an upgraded Horrific unless you need the passive to get through a wall. It is a strictly bad unless you need the passive to get through a wall. Do not buy this relic unless you're using it for a Ymir or an Odin. Please, for the love of God. Or Kabrakan. Whatever. But yeah, that's it. Sundering Spear. I love Sunder. I think it's a really cool relic. It helps you make plays. Problem with it, I wouldn't recommend buying it. Couple reasons. 140-second cooldown, much too long. It is a longer cooldown than Blink. It is a longer cooldown than Curse. Frenzy. Frenzy will end up out-damaging this relic in the late game. If you're trying to kill people yourself, Thorns will do better than Spear a lot of the time. It's just not great. The only scenario where Sunder is really, really good is against really tanky targets. That's not really something that Season 5 has had a problem with. Killing tanks is a lot easier after all the item changes to the carry rolls. Basically, every item that has tank shred or percent shred basically got buffed, so I wouldn't really worry about Sunder. I wouldn't bother with it at all. Bracer of Undoing. Cooldown reduction is kind of like a cheeky, thing to have on a relic. Can help you make plays. Restoring some health is good, but anti-heal will hurt this relic a lot, as well as, poke damage kind of does really well against this because you don't really have a great time to upgrade it. And then you have to upgrade it, or a good time to activate it, and then you have to upgrade it to get the 3-second reduce on a cooldown, at which point I feel like you're better off spending 500 gold to upgrade any of these other relics. So I wouldn't really bother with Bracer that much. It can be good in some cases, but for the most part I wouldn't really bother. Purification Beads. Buy this if you think you're going to be fucked. Like, straight up, if you think that the enemy team comp is going to only try to kill you, or you are something like you're like against a Fenrir or a Circuit or something that's going to try to kill you, and for some reason you're playing Terra into Ganesha and Nox, and you don't think you'll be able to use your kit ever unless you get beads, like some crazy scenario, go beads, make sure you stay alive, hope your kit has enough utility to kind of carry you through, and then you can go it. Never go Aegis, pretty much ever. 180-second cooldown, by far the longest relic cooldown, I think 30 seconds more than every other relic. The 1.5 seconds isn't that great. As far as tanks go, I think that you'll live way more going Bracer, Thorne, Shell, or even Meditation. Or Heavenly, or Horrific, or Blink. All these relics, if you used correctly, will help you live more than Aegis or Beads. So ignore Aegis and then teleport. That's the end of the video for relics. That's pretty much it. Then core items. Moving on to core items. That was 17 minutes on the relics. We're just going to go over the very first item you buy, and we are going to go over Sovereignty versus Gauntlet of Thebes. Again, treat this as 5.4 Gauntlet of Thebes. Actually, we'll put all the aura items up, and we will go over that. And I think I'll go over one more start, which I think is okay. I think this is it. Okay, so these are your first item options. We'll go over Sovereignty versus Gauntlet of Thebes first. So most team comps have 3 physical and 2 magical, and you want to get physical defense before magical defense almost every time. Physical also helps you get damage against the map, against towers, Gold Fury, that type of stuff. Very, very valuable early. So I'm going to put the start like a normal start that I think is good. We're just going to put that down here and we'll talk about the start. So something that I mentioned is that you should pretty much have infinite mana. And just consider, I guess we'll put the boots options here as well. So you'll pretty much have infinite mana, I think. And something that you'll notice is you don't have HP 5 as much as you did last season, because last season you had, you just had Travelers, right? And they just gave you HP 5 out of combat. You'd pretty much go them every single game. And it felt good. You had a lot of sustain, you could take poke early, and it was good. And you didn't need to buy a bunch of extra potions or HP 5 or whatever. That HP 5 gets fixed very easily with Sovereignty or Gauntlet of Thebes. You buy these items. In the case of Gauntlet of Thebes, you have Glowing Emerald, whereas I'm an offense. You have Glowing Emerald into Emerald Mail. It'll give you HP 5 and HP just straight up. And it's really strong. So you get that HP 5 no matter what. So settling the debate between this, if you have to fight early, or they have a lot of physical damage that you will die to, you should rush Sovereignty. It is by far the best physical defense item in the game for support, just in terms of pure stats. No other item gives you as much effective HP, especially considering the HP 5 and for your team. For the cost that Sovereignty does, it is by far the best physical D item. If you plan on fighting early, or if you think you are going to be taking a lot of damage from physical, you should buy Sovereignty. If you get ahead and you think you can snowball the game, or if you're playing for late game and you're not being pressured to fight early, you should go Gauntlet of Thebes. It is the best support item when fully stacked in the game by far, especially consider that in patch 5.4 it will add another part to this passive where if you get kills you will be able to get 5 stacks per kill or assist, doesn't matter if you get the kill, and you will get stacks a lot quicker. So basically, if you can get away with stacking Thebes, you should do it. It gives you 60 of each prot and 200 health and 15 HP 5. Compare that to something like a mantle. You are getting the same amount of prots, 60 and 60, except Thebes also gives you an aura for 10 of each prots to your teammates. You get 200 health and 15 HP 5 on Thebes, and you don't get anything. You get CDR, I guess, on Mantle, and then you have the passive on Mantle, but I think the aura and the HP and the HP 5 is better than the CDR and the passive on Mantle, and then on top of that, it's 500 gold cheaper. It is by far the best defensive item in the game for support, and if you can get it, you should. It's also a very good foundation. It gives you both procs, so you can go Sovereignty after, you can go Heart Ward, Voidstone anyways. So that's basically how I feel. Most games you want to go Sovereignty. If you can get away with Thebes, you should go Thebes. It's just the best item. Other options are Magical Defense. If they have the ADC and the mid laner are the same damage type, be it magical, right? So if the mid laner and the ADC are ever the same damage type, you should rush one of these two auras over Thebes. So if they have double Hunter, you should go Sovereignty first item every game. If they have 2 mages, you should go Heart Ward Amulet or Voidstone first item every game. I would probably recommend Heart Ward Amulet. Other starts that are good, if you go Pen Boots on something like an Ares and you're against a Mage and a Guardian that are going to look to combo you, like CC into a big Mage ult to kill you, you can go Magic D first on Ares. Voidstone will give you a lot of extra damage. Other gods that does well on, just traditional gods that do damage. Bacchus, maybe Cerberus, Nu, Ardio, stuff like that. Voidstone is still very good. And then Stone of Binding, in my opinion, the most underrated defensive item in the game. It is really, really good. I bought this literally every game at Super Regionals last season. It is a different meta because having bridge items, like 1700 gold items, is not nearly as good as full items because this map gives you more farm, and games will tend to go later, so going something like a Stone of Binding isn't great, but if you are getting ahead and you're playing something like an Ardio with a Mage's Blessing and you are trying to maul the absolute fuck out of the enemy backline and kill them, Stone of Binding will do a lot of damage, and it gives you both of each types of prot. It should make you pretty tanky, and it's a decent option. This is like your super aggro tool, and can help you transition into your build, and that is pretty much it. I will go over the last part of the video, which will probably be the longest. I know this is a super long guide, but I wanted to explain everything in depth, and hopefully this is helping you guys out. So again, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the final part in the next video. Thanks guys, see ya.